Well, I think that nobody is surprised that the Liberals have won this evening. Certainly, there's been a very big turnaround in the last couple of months, with the Conservative Party seeing a 20-point lead dwindle with the new Liberal leader of mark-Carney. But what is surprising is that it's not a Liberal majority, as was projected quite handily in the early stages of this 36-day election.
Okay, so it's not yet clear then whether the Liberals will be able to govern alone.
That's right. It's not. It's the polls are still being counted right now. It's past midnight where I am, and we won't know for some time because there was a record number of Canadians that voted in advance polls as well, and those take some time to be counted. And so probably by the morning, we will have a better sense of the final numbers. But as the night wears on, the likelihood of a majority seems to be waning.
Okay, so what does that mean for the way mark-Carney can govern?
Well, that's a very interesting question because we have had a multi-party system in Canada with a strong contingent of bloc-quebecois members who are from the province of Quebec and who are pro-Quebec sovereignty. And we have also had a strong New Democratic Party, which is to the left of the Liberals on the ideological spectrum. And both of those parties have seen their votes collapse in this election. It has really become a two-party race between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And so we had a minority government before this election was called. But what was different there is that the New Democratic Party and the Bloc-Québécois had quite a large number of seats themselves. Now we have really a very close race in terms of overall seats between the Conservatives and the Liberals, with just a handful of seats for the NDP, and the Bloc-Québécois is about 23 right now seats in the House of Commons. And so what that means is we have a much more starkly two-party divided parliament than we did before, with the NDP and the Bloc having hardly any seats, but definitely holding the balance of power.
Okay. So it looks like the Liberals will be in minority. Julie, it is a remarkable result, though, isn't it, when you think that only 4 months ago the Conservatives had a 25-point lead in the public opinion polls.
It is absolutely tremendous. And I don't think that anybody could have predicted it. And it's certainly in large part due to the role that the election of Donald Trump has played, and the activity that we have seen south of the border and his comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. This has not sat well with Canadians, and many Canadians who perhaps were tired of the decade-long Liberal rule in turn returned back to the party once mark-Carney became the leader, in part because mark-Carney was sort of a fresh chapter in the Liberal story, but also because he was perceived to be more capable of standing up to Donald Trump, given his background in finance as the governor of the Bank of Canada and the governor of the Bank of England, as the piece that just ran was explaining.
But did the leader of the Conservatives, though, Pierre-Poilievre, make mistakes that cost him the election?
Well, I think that it is certainly the case that he wanted to stick to some messaging about trying to tie mark-Carney to Justin Trudeau's record. And mark-Carney would say to him, for example, in the debate that ran nationwide, okay, let's talk about my record. I've been prime minister for 1 month. And so it was very late in the campaign that Mr. Poilievre began to focus more on taking on this issue of Donald Trump. And it was too late. But the other story there is in Canada, our Conservative Party has a lot of different Conservative parties within it. And so there is a very strong populist impulse in the Western provinces where the Conservative Party has its strongest base. And then there is more of a progressive side to the Conservative Party in Atlantic Canada. And then in Ontario, where 40 or 38% of the population lives, it's sort of more of the traditional kind of conservatives that have ruled in the past in Canada, going decades back. So it's trying to bring these different threads of conservatism together that is a very unenviable task for any conservative leader in Canada. And unfortunately for Poilievre, he was unable to tonight at least bring enough of those threads together to form the next government.
And what's turnout been like, Julie? Voting isn't compulsory in Canada, is it? How energised have voters been for this poll?
Well, we don't know yet about voter turnout on the day of the election, but we do know that we have seen record numbers of advance polling voting. There were 3 days last weekend where it was possible to vote and people were waiting in line for hours in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases. And millions of votes were cast in advance of the actual day of the election. And if that is any indication of voter turnout today, then it is certainly at a kind of record level, certainly more than we have seen in the past 30 years, I would say.
Okay. Julie Simmons, great to get your expertise. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.